Welcome back to the channel. Well, as you just saw, we made a good dyno poll. Well, I don't know if we call it good really. We made a dyno poll and got some bad results. So this video, we're kind of going to go over what those results were and why they were. Because it was a little disheartening when we hadn't changed anything on the vehicle, but yet we just made a 130 to 150 horsepower less, and the vehicle's in perfect operating condition still. So let's jump on it. Okay. We got Mike here.
Hello. How are you doing on this hot and steamy day?
Main guy over here at the Dyno Dash department. So we made 600 on STD. We made 694 horsepower versus what we made last time, which was this one, and that one was 833. And this is the exact same pulley. Yep. Exact same pulley, exact same boost, 14 pounds all the way through.
Here's the
it's a temperature difference, so 80 degrees
versus
65.
Humidity
24% versus 11%. Now that's one of the biggest factors here. One of the other factors in this is we actually got different fuel in here. So my old lady decided to fill the truck up with, well, not fill up, luckily, but she decided to get some gas from a gas station that I did not quite approve. So we did not see the same type of timing as well. We saw what was that, about 7 degrees less?
Yes.
About 7 to 8 degrees less timing than we saw at our previous. Both of these are 93 octane, but two very different gas stations. Same name, but just two different gas stations. I'm not gonna name drop on them and ruin anybody, but if you watched the old video, then you know what gas I use, so you'll know.
Read between the lines.
Now, let's see. Now this is, what's that, 33 plus 7, so that's 40. That's 140 horsepower difference. And what's the torque difference? Quick
this
math.
Is 60 here.
Huh?
833 and 100 would be 733. So it's 794. Yeah,
140.
Yep.
And the torque, what are we at? 22 plus 58. I hate doing quick math in the head under pressure. So that's 60, about 80 pounds of torque. So we got an 80-pound torque difference and 140 horsepower difference. And that's just at the peak, but all throughout the curve you can see
138.
a big difference.
Oh, yeah.
Now if we go fully uncorrected right now. Now fully uncorrected, that gap gets a little bigger because the weather plays an even bigger part. Because you figure on STD, they compensate some of the parameters for weather.
Yes.
And that was a good weather day regardless. Today is a bad weather day regardless.
But this uncorrected numbers here, this is what it actually made today in this conditions. You know, what you just saw here at 80 degrees, barometric pressure 29.16, 24% humidity. This is the actual number that this vehicle put down right now. And same thing goes for the 811 641 pull from the last time that we knew that had good 93 in it. That made that power at 65 degrees. Barrel's not that far off, 29.3, but look at that humidity. It's less than half. So you can just see how much, what, 15 degrees of temperature and double the humidity percent. And we're not only going from 11 to 24. It's not like we're going from 20 to 50, let's say, which would make it even worse. But we're only a low humidity to a mid, not completely horrible, conditions.
Now these are just two simple parts that change the numbers drastically. Like a lot of guys, like I said, they look on the internet and they see their horsepower. They'll see somebody else with a combo and they want to match it. Like a guy that has my combo, he'll be like, all right, I bought everything that Dorian bought. Why am I only making 600-700 horsepower and he's making 800? Well, the right day you see Dorian's making 600 something horsepower, just the same. Like I said, so what we're going to do first is we're going to change the fuel. We're going to drain that and we're going to put some known 93 and then we'll see what that number is, and then we'll dive a little deeper into more reasons why internet numbers can be a little different. So we're going to do that real quick and then we'll get right back to you guys. All right, so a lot better. Still not quite where we want to get yet. First things first, we can see it's still, as you guys see, same boost, no changes. The only change here was the fuel, and now we got what? This was our best run from a few months ago, 833, and now today, after we changed the fuel, we have the blue line here that came up a lot better, definitely a lot better than the first run today. Still not perfect. So what are your thoughts on, you think that's all weather, or do you think that we still got...
Well, I mean, it still may be pulling a little bit of timing out of it. Again, probably because of the heat, but you're looking at, what is that, 70 horsepower roughly. You know, it's probably gonna be, most of that is gonna be your temperature, more or less humidity, but that's pretty much where it is. If you go ahead and look at where we made these two runs
oh, it's
today,
actually hotter.
It's actually a little hotter, almost 5 degrees. Barrel pressure went up, humidity went down 4%. So most of this that you see here, and you can see it's from the bottom of the pole to the top. It's not like it's started doing anything like this one where you know there was a definite fuel octane problem here. Now that with the better gas in it, or true 93, that's what we can say, at least we're back to where we are. And on that log, it was actually still adding timing this time instead of yanking all of it out. Okay. But again, we still aren't at our max timing where we were with this, where it had everything in it. This is still pulling like a degree or so.
Okay, and this is on standard.
This is on standard.
So now we just put it full-fledged. Let's put it uncorrected.
Uncorrected, all right.
To really see
None?
how the day has altered us. So when we go uncorrected, now we're at 729 versus 811. So that's what, 70, 80 horsepower, which is a lot better than 150.
Yeah, cut it down.
But still, nonetheless, this is the same combo, just with fuel and weather being the only difference. So now this is looking at it uncorrected. Now, can you break down the difference of what standard SAE and uncorrected, how that all plays in a part?
Since we're already on our uncorrected stuff here, again, these here uncorrected numbers, these represent exactly what it made in these conditions today. So the black pole, which is where we knew the fuel wasn't what we normally run, so it's way down on power, 80 degrees, 24% humidity. We drained the tank, put some good no 93 that we normally run back in it. Got a little hotter, about 85 degrees, a little less humidity though, and we picked up quite a bit. Right over here, 729 versus this, so we're already up above, but we're still below our numbers here. So the biggest argument that everybody gets into is, well, why is my pull on STD standard or why is it on SAE? Well, let's move into that right now. First we go to standard. This is the one that you're going to see mostly because, and look at them numbers. 765, 833, 694. They look a lot better. Okay, well, the reason being is the standard correction factor, so to speak, is based off of, I believe, 60 degrees, 29.2 baro, somewhere in there, and altitude pretty much at like 70 feet or something like that. So naturally, your correction factor, since today is not all that great, as compared to a 60-degree day and you know, very little humidity at that point, you can see the increase in power. And we can also see that because our dyno here, if you look at our correction factors, see this would be dyno correction of 1, but here's your actual correction for conditions, 5%, 5%, 3%. So if we now go to your next one, if you pay attention to these numbers here, we got 694 on our lowest one today, 765 after we changed the fuel, and our highest from the last time was 833. Now I'm just going to make one little change here and bring this guy to SAE. Now look at that. Now we're at 669, 737, and 799. Well, how does that happen? The SAE numbers are based off of closer to kind of what today's conditions are, about 75 to 80 degrees. Again, the density is still going to be right around 29.3 or something like that. It has the humidity is, I believe, around 20% on the SAE, but the biggest difference is altitude. SAE uses, like, I want to say 1,700 feet, something like that. So depending on where you're getting dynoed, obviously that can skew numbers, whether you're right at sea level or if you're, you know, in Denver somewhere and you're at, you know, altitude. These numbers will vary greatly depending on which one of these correction factors you use. Since we're here right, I mean, we're basically at sea level, we're right at the water. So usually what I do with these, as far as between, just to take the argument out of everything, I will average out the SAE and the STD numbers to give you a more realistic of, hey, you're right around here. And it usually comes out pretty close, only because that you know, at our level, since we are so close to sea level, the SAE number for that is kind of unrealistic for us. We're nowhere near almost, you know, 1,500, 2,000 feet. So, and if you go to the standard one, that's closer to where we are, but at the same time, I think, like I said, that was at like 70 feet or something like that, which is probably close. We're probably somewhere around maybe 100 or so. But the temperature difference being 60 versus, I think it's 77 for the SAE, the 77 will be closer for today's conditions. So you're kind of like, it's a catch-22.
So basically, like when we pull it up, we see that the temperature at 65 gave us, on SAE, temperature and the rest of the parameters, gave us a total of 799, but uncorrected, which was our actual for this location, actually made more horsepower.
Correct, because it actually took it down. Now, if you go back, if you remember what I had here before, on the standard one, this was 105, 105, and 103. Well, I just changed it to SAE. Now we're 102, 101.99. Closer to 1. So that's why these numbers are, to me, more realistic. again, I'm not getting into, you know, this dyno reads this dyno reads that. That's why the best way of doing anything, if you're going to be testing stuff like we're doing here, we always use the same dyno, we do the same runs, we start the same pull at the same temperature, same wheel, same air pressure, everything that we can possibly control. We try to keep it as, you know, steady as possible, so each pull and everything we change, we can give you valid data. And it shows you here, you know, this is a huge difference. Again, most of this here is obviously the fuel quality, and then the difference between this guy and this guy, and that's pretty much what you're going to lose through just a temperature change. You know, going from 65 degrees to 85 degrees, that's 20 degrees right there, and especially on a forced induction vehicle, that kills power quickly. You know, the air that you're taking in now is less dense, and now you're compressing it, making it hotter. Yes, we have a great intercooler, luckily for Whipple, so we do get a lot of that back, but it's just like, you know, running a race outside. If you're running in a 65 degree day versus an 85 degree day, you're going to be tired much quicker on the 85 degree day than you are 65. The engine's no different. Oxygen is oxygen, and that's where you're losing this amount of power, you know, right here.
Now, another thing that I see guys do a lot, because obviously, so the STE numbers would have gave us the best selling point for horsepower.
Correct, because it's going to give you the highest number.
It's that's the one that they want to go start swinging it around for.
Yep.
Now, also, what smoothing do we have it on?
Smoothing should be on 2. No, it's actually on 1.
All right.
So right now, this is the least amount of smoothing that we have. So this is where we use to see, like, when you get these little dips and stuff like that, what is exactly going on in this area. So we can fine tune certain data points in here just to see, you know, is the cam timing moving around? Is the timing swinging a little bit? That's really to start nitpicking at each and everything to make, you know, every last power and smooth power across the board. Generally speaking, just for appearance purposes, 2 makes that thing look pretty damn good. And you can even see, look at this now. That doesn't look so, like, doesn't look as drastic as 1. But now the other thing take a look at this. So now we're at 661, 733, 792. Okay. Now we're gonna go back to 1. Oh, look at that, our numbers changed again. And really all that's doing is just taking out
the little humps.
This little hump here.
So sometimes it takes out the bad humps, and sometimes it takes out the good humps.
So it's one of those things where it's hard to say. And again, this also has to do with the type of wheel tire that you're using. If the vehicle's vibrating a lot and it's starting to throw some vibration through the dyno, it will pick it up. You know, once we get into some of these real crazy combination race car stuff that are making, you know, 1,500, 2,000 horsepower, and the car is bouncing all over the place, if I were to put this thing on 1, you wouldn't even be able to look at the graph. But again, to go to extremes, let's go to 5. Let's see what that does. Huh.
That graph looks nice.
That graph looks awesome. Look how nice and smooth this is. I mean, yeah, okay, it's down because the timing's down, but it's all it's very smooth. Look at that. Look at this guy.
That's the ones that almost that they advertise when they're advertising a part. Like it's just all linear.
Wow, look at that. That looks awesome.
Oh,
but
man.
Look at our numbers now. 642, 738, 786. Oh hell, we didn't change nothing. Just
changing how the dyno's
looking at the data. That's it. You know, and then the other thing we can look at, which is a nice feature for this Dynacom stuff, if I click on points, every one of these little dots is taking a sample. Is it overkill? Maybe, maybe not. The more data you get, the better the tune can be. But again, when you do this, that's when you get to see everything here. Because now, some of them things became triangles. They're no longer circles. So what's up with that? Well, that means they're points. Hence the reason why it really starts to get pretty crazy up there. But as we bring the smoothing down, all we're doing is simply chopping out some of these erroneous data points, and we start getting a little smoother. A little smoother. As you see, every time I change it, the numbers keep changing. Only because, again, it's just taking out all the little peaks and valleys in the horsepower that you don't get, you know, when you're looking at it on smoothing 5.
So basically, if you had a tuner that didn't have everything dialed in perfect, he might try and add the smoothing to make it look like
oh, wow,
everything is good. Even if it does sacrifice a little bit of horsepower,
yes,
but he'll make that up by switching with whether it's standard or SAE.
Yep. And a lot of times what you'll see, which it depends on what you're trying to look for. Like, we can make these things, I can make the boost graph huge. So now it's zoomed in a lot, but now I also zoomed out this one. Well, now if you look at this black line,
it looks a lot better.
It looks a lot better. Huh, all right, well then if I bring this one down and I make it go down here, holy crap, look at this. Like, now you just realize, and all I did was just change the graph, just the size of it. So you really can't go by numbers all the time. The only true way of knowing, honestly, is going to be by how much airflow and how much fuel the engine's using to calculate, you know, realistic horsepower, and then running the car at the track. And just everything comes down to simple math in the end. You know, there's no magic voodoo juice or nothing else like that that's going to make something miraculously happen. It's air, fuel, power. Like, that's just how it goes. There's no special sauce that's going to make that formula any different than what it is here. So you have correction factor differences. And now we're back to 833, 765, 894. And then you can change your smoothing. This time it went down. So, like you said, sometimes it takes out the good humps. Sometimes it takes out just the bad humps. It all depends. So it's one of those deals where you guys have to pay attention to what correction factor is being used, what smoothing's being used, to get realistic numbers, and actually knowing
what the weather is,
what the weather is on that day of
are.
this dyno. Because that's why a lot of times when guys want to come in and they're changing this and changing that, I like to do a baseline before anything is done. Because if you went somewhere else and had a number, then you made a bunch of changes and you came here and you saw 30 horsepower loss on our dyno, you're going to be like, well, that can't be right. I have nothing to go against because I never dynoed the vehicle before. So that dyno could have read a little high. This dyno could be a little low. We don't really know. So by just having a baseline pull done, okay, now I know 1 or 2 pulls, it makes what it makes, okay, fine. We make a change or whatever the case may be, and if the power goes up, we know we're good. You could go back to the other dyno and it may show an even higher number, but that's irrelevant because
it was a positive gain.
It's a positive gain from before to after. It doesn't matter. So that's why it's very difficult. There's more to the story than just a number. Chasing dyno numbers.
Especially on the internet.
Yeah, especially on the internet. You know, there's more to the puzzle than just these guys right here.
All right. So, I mean, we got some of that. We might have had some of the other fuel in the lines, especially the DI side.
Yeah.
So I say let's try and make one more pull, and even though the temperatures went up on us even more.
Yeah, now we're at 86. All right.
But we'll make one more and see if
anything changes.
Yeah. And then, all right, guys. we kind of have it. I mean, that run pretty much kind of backed up the last run, and after looking at the log, we saw the same timing between all 3 top runs. Our best run from a few months ago, that was 833. Oh, well, which one are we on?
Yeah,
we're on.
Yeah, well, let's make it easy. Let's go back to your standard.
All right. So yeah, the 833 horsepower, we reached MBT for our timing, and these 2 runs right here, we reached MBT for our timing. So even though we had the exact same timing, the exact same boost, so now fuel is no longer the issue here. It's proven. We still have big difference in numbers. So you figure that's roughly 80 horsepower difference.
Yep.
That's just because of the weather.
Yeah.
So
you can see it right here.
We're at 80.
Our last pull was 80. I'm gonna call it 85. We just went up 2 more degrees. We dropped a little bit of humidity.
And we lost what? 12 horsepower?
Yeah, about that. Let's see if I can go to cursor. Yeah, 10, 12 horsepower.
Yeah.
6. All depends on where we read, but yeah, about 10, 12 horsepower across the board.
Yeah, and that, my friends, it's the biggest issue when it comes to trying to chase internet dyno numbers. My own internet dyno numbers on 2 different days have a different 80 horsepower swing, just from 2 different days. Nothing else changing about it. Then if you add in changing fuel, because remember, a lot of guys, they go get fuel from wherever they go get, and they're like, oh, it was great, everything, my logs look good, I did street logs, and then they go on a dyno, don't realize that they went to a different gas station, and a different gas station cost me another 70 horsepower. So in total, between the weather and fuel, there was a 150 horsepower swing. So that's just something to keep in mind when you guys are out here chasing internet dyno numbers. It can be literally just that, a chase that you may not ever catch.
Exactly.
I myself just couldn't catch my own. So here we are. Hope you guys like the information, the data, and this is Boosted F-150 out. Big shout out to Ken Osborne for those lines on 1 smoothing looking real nice. My guy doesn't have to hide up at his with high smoothings. So, also big shout out to Whipple, Extreme DI, MBRP, SPD Performance, Oz Tuning, the DAS guys over at Dana Ford, you know, the JD Power Solutions fuel system, Ross Performance always, my guy, and if I missed you, oh, got my UPR catch can. And anyone else, if I missed, I'm sorry, but we'll get you next time. HP Tuners. Wouldn't be possible without them. Ask the guys that got a 2021.